To watch the latest from India Science, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press on the bell icon to get notifications on all the science-related videos.
Namaskar and welcome to India Science. We endeavour at India Science to develop the scientific temper of our country. And today we have a very eminent guest with us. It gives me immense pleasure today to welcome amidst us Dr. Vijender Chauhan ji, who is an Indian scientist and a Rhodes Scholar working in the fields of genetic engineering and biotechnology. He was also conferred the Padma Shri in 2012 by the Government of India. Many thanks for joining us today, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
As India battles COVID actually, and we see several mutations coming through and we see trials on, I would like to first ask you, how do you define a virus?
What we know now, all life forms, whether it is an animal kingdom or it is in plant kingdom or marine lives, the one fundamental tenet is that it must have nucleic acid, which is either DNA or RNA. Difference between RNA and DNA is very small. All these are called nucleic acid. They have all the information about the life form that they finally eventually take. Now, all DNA pieces will not produce a life form. There will be a specific sequence in which, so for a general public, what would be a DNA or RNA molecule? Consider this like a bead put together.
Yeah.
In a rope. So there are 4 colored beads. You can say green, black, or whatever. And there are arrangements of bead in a certain order. So you can have 2 green together, 2. So this is a very logical way the DNA is put. And only these 4 building blocks, both in RNA and DNA, will form huge chains. A smallest virus would have about, I would say, 1400, smallest virus. There are very small viruses. COVID is slightly bigger. Would be, let's say, 1500 to 2000. So with a very small piece of RNA DNA, you can have a life form which is eager to multiply. If you compare very quickly with the human genome, like your genome, my genome, we would have 3 billion of these small beads. So, but we are still made up of the same bead from which a virus is made, or a bacteria is made, or a parasite is, or a tree is made, or a seed is made, or a fish is made. So this is fundamental. I think it's very important to put it in as simple words for the public, for the viewer as possible. Now, this COVID-19 is an RNA virus. So all viruses, you ask me a question, what is a virus? All viruses will have either a DNA or a piece of RNA. This piece of RNA DNA will have enough information for the virus to multiply into many, many copies. They all covered by, because a single piece of RNA DNA floating will not be stable. So in evolution, they are covered by something called coat. It's a coat on top of them, and this is called coat proteins. We in evolution do not know whether DNA came first or protein came first, but anyway, here is a life form. I would consider viruses at the cusp of no life and life form. No life because viruses cannot multiply by themselves. So they could be hanging around. There are hundreds of viruses. In fact, we are discovering viruses at a very great pace because now we are able to discover them. 200 years back, we had no ability. 100 years, we had no ability to discover them.
But yet the Spanish flu went on for 2 years.
So now the viruses must have been there much before.
Yes.
It's only happened because now you could record. There would be plagues were in 13th century before BC, 3000 years back you had plague. Plague is caused by a bacteria, not by a virus. But anyway, let me come back to virus form. Viruses do not have the machine to multiply by themselves. So they must enter either an animal or a bat or a rat or a cat or a human. So normally these viruses are in animal kingdoms and they learn they are at peace with each other over the years. Sometimes now with the pressure of climate or occupying the same spaces that animals were occupying, sometimes these viruses have the ability to jump. This is called jumping of virus from one species to another species. Anyway, so I'm getting lost into definition of virus. Viruses therefore is just a piece of RNA or DNA. DNA can be double-stranded, but let's not worry about, just keep it.
So if we talk about the COVID virus
COVID virus is a single-stranded RNA. It enters our cells through, all viruses have different ways of entry.
Right.
Hepatitis will enter differently, HIV differently, although the basic structure is the same.
Yeah, correct.
There's still a piece of DNA, RNA covered. In the case of, I'll just now restrict myself to COVID-19. There is a receptor on our cells, on the epithelial cells in the respiratory system, which has something called ACE2 receptor. ACE stands for angiotensin converting enzyme. It's just an enzyme. It's present on many cells. Virus comes in, is coated with a protein and has spikes. If you see a structure of this virus, there's spikes. They're called spike protein. So there's S2 protein that makes an interaction with the receptor, and movement form, then many other very quick reaction, folding, unfolding takes place. Virus enters the cell. Moment it enters our cell in human cell system or a bat system, it starts using our machinery, the cellular machinery. As I said, viruses cannot multiply on their own. And in this conversion of their material into another copy, is not a high fidelity reaction. So viruses, when multiply themselves, so sometimes some mutations, as I said, there are 4 beads. I told you earlier. So one of the bead is switched from here to here. Well, that is called a mutation. So the single mutation we'll call a single point mutation. But the mutations can change the structure of protein which the virus is making. In the case of the famous D to G, that the glutamic acid to glycine has been caused. It seems we are learning now, we are learning more in science, that it opens up the structure of S protein little bit more and making it more susceptible, more easy to enter. So it seems now the information, scientific information, whether the virus can enter the cells even faster than the virus when the original version. So it's more infective, but there's no evidence that it kills more or it causes more mortality. But point I want to leave with this question is the virus inherently will accumulate mutations. You said Spanish flu disappeared after 2 years, or SARS-1 disappeared within a year, or Zika was made under control, and so on and so forth. The viruses can mutate into forms which are more acceptable to human system, doesn't cause major disease, still multiply, we learn to live with them, like in case of flu. I mean, we don't live happily with flu, but we live with quite conveniently with flu. So virus could go that way. We have 4 coronavirus we get common flu, cold with them right now. So this is the 4th or 5th one.
So now there are 109 mutations, sir. You just spoke about the D2614G. Does that make the making of the vaccine more difficult, is my question.
So right
because
now,
of the mutations.
Sure. So actually, as I said, all viruses mutate, but there are at least 25 vaccines against viruses which are extremely effective. Hepatitis B,
239 players, if I'm not wrong, or more than that.
Hepatitis E, there's a large number of vaccines. So small mutation here, there will not change. But if you had many mutations, and the vaccine is made against a strain of virus, and if the structure of S protein or business has changed so much that the antibody produced by vaccine actually refused to recognize the new mutated virus, then of course you have problem, and we have that problem in flu. Each year you have to create a new vaccine. But as of now, there is no evidence that these smaller mutation would cause any concern. Remember that in this case, most vaccines are focused to generate vaccine against the business end, and there don't seem to be very effective mutations in that region.
Correct. And as we talk about the vaccine, what is your assessment really of when it would be out, and again, who are the people that you think as a scientist would be given priority, and who are the various players who you feel could go to trials?
So I want to just make a quick comment which addresses your question, which is as I said it earlier, that many platforms on which vaccine can be produced are being done. So which is very good news that the front runners, now there are about 10 of them, they are using all sorts of different platforms. 3 of them have same platform. So the good news is this: if a vaccine can be made, and I think that if is not a serious if anymore, some vaccine will show up. Will it be 100% efficacious or not, we'll find out. But even if a vaccine is 70 or 80% efficacious, it will be an extremely useful tool in the hands of governments or scientists to fight with the virus. So we should not worry about this 100% efficacy, but it has to be 100% safe.
Correct.
Safety can't be compromised.
Absolutely.
So my view is that since there are so many vaccines have gone so fast, at least 1, 2 or maybe many more of them. So the question now comes, if there are many vaccines are being developed in many different locations, where will they be produced? So these discussions are taking place, and fortunately India as a country is absolutely leading in the world in production of vaccines. So
pharmacy of the world, yes.
Absolutely, especially in vaccine. The pharmaceutical industry very strong. 50% of vaccines are produced in India for Africa. But anyway, when the vaccine will be available, who would receive it, these discussions are already taking place. The trials are being done in a certain age group. So this age group, so people, for example, who are front runners in the hospitals and so on, clearly everybody would argue they have to be protected first. Then people who work in factories and so on, people who have to turn the wheels of economy, they will receive it first. But I don't think there is a worry that millions of doses can be produced very quickly. The question is, can we give vaccines away?
And on that note, we are going in for a short break. Stay tuned and keep watching India Science. When we come back, we'll talk about the efficacy, safety and other things about the vaccine.
विज्ञान तथा प्रौद्योगिकी के प्रति लोगों की रुचि जगाने के उद्देश्य से साल 2019 में इंडिया साइंस चैनल की शुरुआत की गई। विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग द्वारा शुरू किया गया इंटरनेट आधारित ये विज्ञान वेब चैनल विभाग के स्वायत्त संस्थान विज्ञान प्रसार द्वारा संचालित किया जा रहा है। इस चैनल पर विज्ञान पर आधारित डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज, ताज़ा विषयों पर स्टूडियो चर्चा, साक्षात्कार और हर आयु वर्ग को आकर्षित करने वाली विज्ञान लघु फिल्में और साप्ताहिक कार्यक्रम प्रसारित किए जा रहे हैं। सोशल मीडिया और इंटरनेट की पहुंच आज हर जगह, हर व्यक्ति तक है। ऐसे में देश में वैज्ञानिक चेतना के प्रसार के लिए ये माध्यम सबसे उपयुक्त कहा जा सकता है।
Welcome back to India Science, and we are in conversation with Dr. Vijender Chauhan. Just before the break, we were talking to him about the vaccine. So to add to our conversation, my next question is, you said about, the vaccine being, India being the front runner and all of that. But my question to you is, suppose there are 1.9 million people to whom the vaccine needs to be given. Is that possible? And we're talking of billions here. How possible is this, and how soon do you see it reaching out to people?
So clearly in India or any other country, vaccine cannot be delivered in one single day. But it is true that given the platform on which vaccines are being developed and given the capacity of production, millions of vaccines can be produced and stocked. Vaccines would require cold chain. And so many countries which will not have cold chain or do not have infrastructure will have little bit difficulty. But fortunately India, because of polio program and general emphasis of government of India over the years on immunization. India has one of the most robust immunization awareness program. That's how you got rid of polio. So polio structure and government continuous emphasis of immunization, we have the infrastructure. Of course, if you have the infrastructure, you cart out the vaccine. So I think what I'm saying, India would be in a very good position to roll out the manufacture vaccines and roll out these vaccines. I think Government of India is fully behind this, Department of Biotechnology, whole government, ICMR. So once the vaccine is ready, I'm very hopeful that India would be successful in immunizing mass. Of course, it will be a challenge, but then we meet up.
We're learning from challenges.
We'll meet up the challenge.
So do you think we need to invest more in our health policy? This is a question I've been wanting to ask you because I think America had developed their health policy and health investment schemes, and yet they are not being able to really cope up with COVID-19. India has done very well as far as the mortality rates are concerned, but there is still a lot miles to go before we sleep. You know, should there be a second wave is what people are asking.
So India is a large country, and in all fairness, a developing country. On many measures, you would see India has done extremely well, but you can always say glass is half full. It on many measures has not. You could argue it has not done very well. Yes, there is a fundamental case now after COVID-19, or in fact just before COVID-19, a huge focus on tuberculosis control.
Yes, which you saw.
We were all involved in. There was a huge, so I think that awareness was there, but clearly more infrastructure, more money needs to be spent. I think everybody has talked about it. Everybody is aware. Now we have to act. As you said, future pandemics, we need to prepare. Absolutely correct, because this pandemic will come in future unannounced. And I just wanted to say that people may not have realized after the HIV virus infection, every decade has seen a sort of pandemic.
Yes.
You had Ebola, you had Zika, you had H1N1,
you had MERS.
H1, yeah, MERS. So there could be another, and COVID. But remember, COVID, even the best of the government struggled with COVID.
Yes.
COVID is just unprecedented. Hopefully COVID will leave us soon, but would have taught us enough that you can never let your guards down.
How soon is soon?
It's hard to say, but I'll stick my neck out in this. I would say it will. The way it's going on, the way it's increasing. In fact, you and I are talking at a time,
yes.
So it cannot go on like this, I would imagine. It's a very infectious virus.
The peak
but
is
killing
yet to
rate,
come.
but mortality rate has come down.
Yes.
So again, we are as if there's a balance being created. More people get infected, less will get serious disease and die.
Something like herd immunity.
Herd immunity, if we continue, will happen then. There's no question. And once herd immunity, but vaccine is the only tool to create herd immunity. In fact, we're developing vaccine as fast as we can so that we get herd immunity. And then virus will go in the background. It will make some small presence here or there. I would say, hopefully, by next summer, we should see it going down. But this is on hope. This is
2021 summer.
21 summer.
Okay, great. Very, very heartening to hear that, sir. Besides this, if we talk about your contribution to malaria, you've done immense work, sir. So could you take us through that?
So when I shifted from Delhi University, I started my teaching career in St. Stephen's College many years back. I trained myself in chemistry and biochemistry, and I went to IIT Kanpur, came back to Delhi University. When I joined the International Center for Genetic Engineering Biotechnology, I think we made a very conscious decision. And I say this to young scientists very clearly. All you need is good quality training and a curious mind. And you can switch in and switch out of any field you like. So I was not trained in malaria per se, but we knew this is a major problem. So at ICGB, malaria, dengue and tuberculosis and virology were taken. I headed the malaria group, and there were then the science and technology tools were available to think of rational basis for malaria vaccine. Till today we don't have a malaria vaccine, but I think we made a presence in India, and we have done completely indigenous research, indigenous production, indigenous effort to go through regulatory body, and did 2 human trials. As I speak with you, we are proposing to do another trial. Whether trials are successful or not is not the point. The point is that you develop manpower, you train people, you build a road on which others can walk for future vaccine. I think in that sense, Indian biotechnology science is coming. That's why you suddenly see India would have 3 vaccines, Bharat Biotech would have 1, Serum Institute have another 1.
Pune, yes.
But this is just being created in past 20 years.
Yeah, correct.
Bharat Biotech is the first generation company. And so is in that
and now
sense,
the world is looking at us. The world is looking at us.
So huge things can be achieved. I am eternally hopeful about India's younger people's talent to do.
We'll talk a little
this.
more on that, but before that, we're going in for a short break. Stay tuned, keep watching India Science.
विज्ञान तथा प्रौद्योगिकी के प्रति लोगों की रुचि जगाने के उद्देश्य से साल 2019 में इंडिया साइंस चैनल की शुरुआत की गई। विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग द्वारा शुरू किया गया इंटरनेट आधारित ये विज्ञान वेब चैनल विभाग के स्वायत्त संस्थान विज्ञान प्रसार द्वारा संचालित किया जा रहा है। इस चैनल पर विज्ञान पर आधारित डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज, ताज़ा विषयों पर स्टूडियो चर्चा, साक्षात्कार और हर आयु वर्ग को आकर्षित करने वाली विज्ञान लघु फिल्में और साप्ताहिक कार्यक्रम प्रसारित किए जा रहे हैं। सोशल मीडिया और इंटरनेट की पहुंच आज हर जगह, हर व्यक्ति तक है। ऐसे में देश में वैज्ञानिक चेतना के प्रसार के लिए ये माध्यम सबसे उपयुक्त कहा जा सकता है।
Welcome back, and we are in conversation with Dr. Vijender Chauhan, and he was telling us just before we left about how India succeeded in doing away with many diseases, including polio, and we're looking at malaria, and now we have COVID-19. So if we could go ahead, if you could throw some light on the fact that the platforms that are being used now by scientists, I do not know the efficacy of this statement, but this is what we've heard, that there was no time because COVID took us by surprise to create new platforms. So they're being built on platforms of dengue or malaria. How true is this, sir? And could you amplify on the same?
So before COVID or with COVID, the vaccines for HIV has been a prime example. Now we know HIV for many decades now, but we don't have a successful vaccine against HIV. And as we learned more in genetics and molecular biology, we realized that we don't have to only use killed virus or killed pathogen. Rather, you can pluck out portions of relevant portions, and you can create, for example, a very quick example, insulin produced today is produced in bacteria. About 50 years, 60 years back, you had to cut an ox pancreas, extract. But now genetic engineering allows you to do all that. So hepatitis B vaccine was the first vaccine where it was completely genetically engineered vaccine. We could use other viruses which do not hurt us, but you can open the virus genome, enter the virus of, that's another platform. So, or you can just use a piece of RNA, which is another platform. So there is a DNA platform, there is an RNA platform, there is a protein based platform, there is a killed virus, you deliver through viruses, all these are being. So this has happened regardless of COVID-19. This was being developed because we need vaccine for Shigella, we need vaccine for hepatitis C, we need vaccine for HIV, malaria, tuberculosis. So vaccinology has taken off. So what you see in COVID-19 quick response, everything coming together because of unprecedented.
That fear psychosis, I think everything else is taken a back seat somewhere,
No, we've never seen anything like that.
Yeah,
it just
exactly.
Because of his infects
it just
so
stumped
quickly.
Us, the whole country.
So quickly.
Yes.
So Ebola didn't scare you so much, although Ebola would kill much more than this virus.
Right.
Ebola is a great killer. But Ebola, you need blood or you need secretion from human to human. Here is the one fellow who just goes through the air. So you can't escape. So I would say more respect for this virus or such viruses. Being scared of this virus doesn't help you to fight it. That's why mask is necessary. I'd never go out without a mask.
So what about the other immunity builders that you would recommend now to people in the third stage of this, the waves going up, spiking up numbers on a daily basis? Is there anything that, basically we're looking at children also and how?
As of now, the message should be very clear. All information that should be disseminated should be based on evidence and science. As much we know about this virus, as much we know about the disease, what we know that the best bet still is mask, especially those who think they are some symptoms of it or even all of us. Social distancing is absolutely necessary. Right as of today, I think the best bet is mask, social distancing and hygiene. A lesson which COVID-19 would have taught us, and I think in a country like India should all the time be followed, is washing your hands. Just washing your hands if post-COVID so many infectious diseases in India will come down with a great degree. And I think now mask is acceptable to a lot of people. I'll be very happy to wear mask.
There are designer masks coming out.
No, in the winter, even flu will not be attacking you so much. So I guess all of us won't wear masks forever. But as of now, I don't think so. You eat this, you drink this, you do this. I think that kind of information scientists should avoid. It is not there. But you eat well, you rest well.
Sir, on that note, I'd like to again ask you one question, which is, I think, very important to our conversation. You mentioned about scientists earlier. So tell us that, how is it that we get more and more people joining this field? You're a veteran at this and you're giving them so many scholarships and stuff like that. How do you think we could inspire people to take up science?
I think the India's biggest, to my mind, strength, having the experience, is our young kids. I have had students, first-time learners coming from almost other corner, and they can shine themselves in 6 months' time. They can do amazing things. They're hardworking. I think India should cash on this, but you need to spend more money. Science spending in basic research is very, very small. And if India wants to become a major force in sciences, I think in basic science, basic research, our funding has to really increase. Funding alone will never solve the problem. Otherwise, some of the Middle Eastern country would be the best science producer. I think with that training of the individual responsibility of those of us who are in the business of teaching, I think, to me, having taught and being
inculcate more interest is what you're trying to say.
The individual responsibility of those of us who choose to do research, to train students to ask the right question, frame the right question. And I think it's those of us who want to do research or teach, it's our responsibility to produce a very good cadre to go on. But more money is needed.
And on that light note and the lovely conversation we had, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights and views. It was such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Lily.
And to all our viewers, we need to encourage those curious minds to take up more and more research, more and more science. Let us all, you and I, celebrate science. On that note, many thanks for watching. Namaskar.